You're entering Corsi Nation.
This is Jerome Corsi. Today it's Friday. It's April 11th, 2025. Thank you for joining us on thetruthcentral.com, now CorsiNation.com. We retired thetruthcentral.com. We're going back to the flagship that I've had, which is CorsiNation.com. That's the banner under which we're going to be broadcasting from now on. And we're going to start out right away today. Oh, by the way, you can get me on X at Corsi Jerome 1. I'm still being shadow banned. We'll get that solved, I think, pretty soon. And on Substack, I'm JeromeCorsiPhD.substack.com. Okay, the first story I want to cover is really important, and it's one we've been waiting for. Tulsi Gabbard, who's head of the Department of Homeland Security, yesterday at the cabinet meeting made a remarkable statement saying a voter fraud. It's affirming that the machines do change votes. Now, this is just the beginning. You're going to see, I've been on Pam Bondi. I've been calling her Pam Blondie. Do something, Pam Blondie. Let's get going with this Justice Department. They weren't given it to become Bill Barr 2.0. Sit around, do nothing, fat belly, bagpiping, and did nothing. Absolutely nothing. No indictments, nothing about the corrupt FISA court. Well, these things are all okay. Standard operating procedure at the corrupt DOJ. Okay, well, let's listen to Pat, what Tulsi said, and right now. Go ahead, play it.
We're investigating. We have the best of the best going after this. Election integrity being one of them. We have evidence of how these electronic voting systems have been vulnerable to hackers for a very long time. And vulnerable to exploitation to manipulate the results of the votes being cast, which further drives forward your mandate to bring about paper ballots across the country so that voters can have faith in the integrity of our elections.
Okay, well, Tulsi Gabbard just grabbed the headline there, and it's being featured across the internet this morning. And what she's saying is the hackers have hacked into the computers at the boards of election. That's really what we're saying on God's 5 stones. This is the algorithms. People are going to think she's talking about the Dominion machine. She is in a way, but the focus is going to be really on these codes that create all these secret, hidden voters who are not real. 3 Jerome Corsis on the roll. There's only one of me, but the other 2 have different dates of birth. And they're fakes, intentionally created by these algorithms. So God's 5 stone is G-O-D, no apostrophe on the S, F-I-V-E, fully spelled out, and stones, plural, gods5stones.com. And once there's criminal investigations going, we're going to be raising a lot more money. And we're going to be doing a lot more pushing this issue. Okay, now, what needs to happen next is Pam Bondi and Patel at the Department of Justice need to follow this up with an election integrity task force. Okay, it could be Operation Election Integrity. Okay, that's what they should call it. Just like, the Democrats know how to run the Justice Department to make it go against, to weaponize it. They created Operation Crossfire Hurricane to go after the Russian collusion. Then they put a whole bunch of Department of Justice attorneys on it. They got the FBI dedicated to it. They gave them subpoena power. They had a FISA court operating. They had the ability to have a grand jury, and they were producing indictments going after this Russian collusion lie. They had the media. We're not going to have the media. Of course, the media, I think, is increasingly in disrepair. I mean, the Washington Post, it was trying to get editorials written supporting a little bit more conservative positions. But I still say the only reason to buy a New York Times or Washington Post is if you've got a dog or a parakeet. And, if Pam Blondie can't get her ass in gear, we'll get somebody else over there. This is on the line now. Either do something or leave. And what you can do is create a task force to go after criminal activity in the election, state boards of election, which we know it's rampant. Okay, in Wisconsin, which we're focusing on, you have the ability here. We found over 875,000 modified duplicates in their database. They have a database of 7 or 8 million voters. The population of the state is only 5.9 million people. Well, we've got 3.6 million, I believe, is registered active voters, but then they got another 4.4 as inactive voters. And a lot of these state, city, county clerks and the Wisconsin Election Board officials, Wisconsin Election Commission, can actually enter into the computer with a username and password and make inactive voters active during election, then remove them, put them back in the inactive database. We found, I'll be writing an article on this weekend, which is that Andrew Paquette, who's the genius who figured out all these algorithms, his articles are all up on our website, as well as all the videos I've been doing about this. I'm going to be doing a lot more. So we're finding here that what you've got is a situation where Paquette said there's too many records ending in 0. Okay, now how should records end? Well, randomly, it should have each digit, so you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so each digit at the end of something ought to have a 0 about as often as all the other numbers, 1 through 9, as the ending last number in a voter ID. But instead, there are 30% of these election IDs in Wisconsin end in 0, and only 7.7% of the other digits. Well, it turns out that the 0 ending voter IDs all have 2 voters associated with that one ID number. That's inherently illegal. That's a crime. And what makes it so significant? It's a crime that required somebody to be inside, hacking into the computer and putting a code in there. So every time there was a 0, 2 voters get associated with that number, that voter ID number. That's an algorithm. Okay, so we've got proof positive that there's been a crime committed. Now, if Pam Bondi does not want to go investigate that, we need an attorney general who will, especially after Tulsi Gabbard has announced this. Now, Donald Trump, I think, is on this. And I see Donald Trump yesterday on this guy Krebs, which was extremely interesting to me. Okay, so Krebs was in the administration in the first term, and Trump had an executive memorandum yesterday. Okay, and I'm going to get it. Let me just pull it up here, and Chris, look for it too, because I want to actually focus on this for a minute. What he said about Krebs was that Krebs was the cybersecurity chief in Trump's first administration. Chris Krebs and this guy Miles Taylor, and what they said at the 2020 election was that it was one of the most secure elections, in fact, the most secure election in U.S. history. Well, that was just absolutely BS. I mean, we all watched it. So Trump is leading in 2020 in election night. He's way ahead of Biden. Then the 7, what we're calling now battleground states, Arizona being one of the leading ones, Pennsylvania, we saw it in Georgia, Wisconsin. Okay, they all stopped counting the ballots. And then overnight, all these ballots are getting delivered, boxes and boxes and boxes, truck full, to the counting, and they're all full of mail-in ballots. They get run through the machines in the middle of the night. The shades are down. The poll workers are, watchers are thrown out. In the morning, Biden's ahead and Biden wins. Well, the whole country knew this was wrong. This is how it's done. They were taking the modified duplicates in the database that they had created and hidden, and they were voting them. Okay, now what Krebs and Taylor said, and they were supposed to be cybersecurity for DHS, the former DHS Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency head, Christopher Krebs, and Miles Taylor, former Department of Homeland Security official. They wrote a highly critical tell-all book, making money on a stupid book, which is a tell-all book about how bad Donald Trump was, even though they were officials in Donald Trump's administration. Okay, and saying that the election was the most secure in U.S. history, that Biden won. So Trump fired Krebs as the nation's top civilian cybersecurity officer soon after the November 2020 election for being an outspoken defender of the nation's election security apparatus in the months leading up to Election Day, even though Trump and everybody else in the country with half a brain knew that it was not a fair election. Okay, so Donald Trump now issued a memorandum, executive memorandum, demanding a criminal investigation in Krebs. Okay, now that's an order to Pam Bondi to do something. Tulsi Gabbard picked it up. Tulsi Gabbard was there, and she had the headline. She's saying, okay, DHS is going to investigate this. This was a DHS officer, and we're going to find out what the weaponization was being done here against Trump and how it was criminal. Okay, so this Christopher Krebs now, who is going to face criminal investigation. I hope they put this SOB in prison for a long time, because I actually hope they try him for treason, because what he was trying to do was cover up obvious election fraud and destroy election integrity. This is more than just a crime. Okay, now if Pam Bondi follows up on this, and here's the idea. Trump is a genius at this. Trump is setting out the message. Trump is on this case. Okay, and so he now, with his executive memorandum, forced this investigation. And Gabbard picked up on it. Now the ball's in Pam Bondi's court. Let's see what she does. The only way you can run so they get over to the Department of Justice and say, well, you can't fire this guy. He's been running an investigation for 30 years. Well, he hasn't indicted anybody, but if he gets fired, we lose that investigation. Well, if he hasn't done anything in 30 years, fire him. And by the way, if for whatever reason she's convinced, they all come in and say, well, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this. First day she's like, well, you can't do this. You don't want to upset this. We need this thing going here. Department of Justice is going to build themselves a whole big building. They should stay in their own crummy little building and rot there. Okay, and we need to get rid of half of them. But the way to do it is Pam Bondi creates her own DOJ through task forces. So President Trump issues an executive order. We need election integrity. The states file lawsuits saying, no, you'll be suppressing the vote because minorities can't get IDs. They just have to be able to walk in and vote. Complete BS. Complete made up, propaganda, stupid argument that's going to be propagated by the mainstream media until we're sick of it. Lies, 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 and stupid lies. This is a stupid lie. I'll point that out in a minute. So what Blondie's got to do, she's got to say, okay, Trump has an executive order. We're going to have voter IDs, and we're going to have proof of citizenship to vote. The Democrats go to court. Democrats will win in court because courts don't like settling these issues about elections. But if it's criminal investigation, forget the courts. We don't need the courts. The courts will deny standing. That's why we had the failure with Mike Lindell. That's why we had the failure with Sidney Powell. And then the Dominion machines then sued them, okay, because they lost in court. Dominion machines, you were maligning our good company. Okay, well now with Trump, with his executive order and executive voter integrity, targeting a guy like Krebs, and there's 24 others, I can give him a list of 250 people he ought to target. Easy. Got it right here, all the research I've been doing over the years on this. Okay, and then Pam Bondi's going to say, okay, we'll pick up that executive order. It's an election integrity, so we'll create operational election integrity, a task force. I'll assign people to it, put somebody in charge of it. If that person suspects that we've got, woke DOJ assigned to the task force, we fire them that day. If we have woke FBI, we fire them that day. We get the ones in here who will really investigate election fraud. We go after Krebs, and then we go after all the other criminals. Okay, and then we do it with subpoena power. And then, by the way, Pam Bondi, get the U.S. attorneys in place. Because they, in the states, the U.S. attorney for Washington, for New York. Let's get one for New York who is, going to go after the second all the state nonsense that we've seen with Donald Trump's false prosecutions in New York courts. Let's begin going after, Fannie Willis and this woman Abrams. Let's go after them for criminal violations of federal law and with the potential of treason charges. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. So Trump's leading the charge. Trump's charge is the messaging. He can order the departments to do things. He started doing it. They can follow up with task forces. We can get criminal investigations. We can get indictments. Otherwise, this thing is going to drift. Now, I know we're not yet at 100 days, the Trump administration. We won't be there until we get to March 20th. Okay, but Trump's already accomplished a lot. Now what he's doing is he's put people in place who are supposed to be able to do the job. Now, Kash Patel can't do it. If he's just a big talker and he wants to go to hockey games with, Gretzky so he can watch, records being sent, well, that's not his job. He doesn't need to be going over to the sports arena, the Capitol Center, watching a hockey game when he should be creating task forces and going after the criminals in the voting integrity system. And there's plenty of them. I can name you a bunch in Georgia. I can name you a bunch in Arizona, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. Every state we've looked at has a voter roll that is completely filled with illegals, dead people, people who have been inactive for years, put back on the active rolls. It's got fictitious, modified duplicates. It's got, now we're finding multiple people attached to one voter ID. These are crimes. They need to be investigated. The criminals need to be fought. I can show them how to get the computer that runs the servers for the states and get the compiler, go to machine language, and we can find out who did what. Because every keystroke is recorded in that machine, all the zeros and ones at machine code level. And the compiler will be able to tell you who did what and who entered where and how they did it. We can get these criminals. And if we don't have the people in place in DHS, looks like Gabbard's going to come up and get up to bat, and she's going to knock it out of the park. Now, either Blondie gets knocked out of the park or Blondie knocks it out of the park. That's her choice. Same with Patel. And we're going to hold them to it. What I'm confident of is that Donald Trump is going to win. Because I see Donald Trump, he had the hand of God on him. He turned his head just at the right moment and nicked his ear, which is God saying, let's listen up, people. Let's listen up. Let's do something about these crimes. We've gotten on our knees on 2 Chronicles 7:14. We've asked God to forgive us for letting these Democrats not confuse us with who's a man and who's a woman. If Democrats can't tell who's a man or who's a woman, this communist, democratic, traitorous party doesn't need to exist. Okay, and if I were various of them, Al Green, or maybe Pocahontas, $67 million net worth, I'd be concerned that the next step that Donald Trump is going to start saying is, why do we have so many millionaires in Congress? Where do they get this money? Let's investigate them. Let's see how many of the congressmen and women attended the sex parties, P. Diddy, and drugs. Were they taped? Are they being blackmailed? John Roberts. I'd like to know what Roberts, why he's over at his country club, blabbing his mouth, blab, 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 about how bad Donald Trump is. If he wants to be an open Trump hater at his golf course, go ahead and do it. But don't be Supreme Court Justice. Don't be against the president trying to exercise his powers under Article 2 to remove Venezuelan criminals from our streets, saying they have rights. They have rights? They're not citizens. They're criminal thugs. And they should be shipped off to El Salvador, where they got prisons for these kind of people. Let them go be in those prisons and see how well they like being a gang member. It may have been really cute at 18, but it's not going to be so cute at 88 years old. Okay, all those tattoos aren't going to be so attractive when they aren't in the streets killing and terrorizing people, raping people. Okay, so it's time for justice right now. And the Democrats are saying, oh, but blacks can't get IDs. Well, Chris, let's play this little clip we have from the Babylon Bee, which is really good on this one. Let's play this little clip. If you can cue it up, they really caught my fancy today. It's quite good. Here we go.
We're here on the scene in this Republican county where African Americans are being oppressed
Remember, this
by
is
horrific
satire.
new voter laws, forcing them to acquire a legal ID to vote. Excuse me, sir. You're unable to acquire an ID, are you not?
Actually, I just renewed my ID. It's pretty easy, actually.
There you have it. This poor black man has been disenfranchised by racist voter ID laws because he's too ignorant. I'm sorry. Ignorant means stupid. Too ignorant to acquire a voter ID. Absolutely tragic. The new laws forbid giving out food, water, and free cash to voters in line. How will black people figure out how to drink water in line to vote? That's illegal. Thanks to Republicans. Where did you get that anyway?
I brought it.
You didn't bring that. You're too underprivileged. That means poor. I'm sorry the evil conservatives are trying to figuratively smack the water out of your hands.
You literally just did that. Like, who are you? You know what? Forget it. It's my time to vote. Just chill out.
We just witnessed a hate crime. A thirsty, dehydrated hate crime. Our thoughts and prayers to his family.
Okay.
Black people are oppressed. How oppressed? Republicans want to stop us from feeding them. Well, you can't stop this progressive, you racists.
You're the racist.
Here comes the airplane.
How did you get into my house?
I won't let these alt-right lunatics starve you.
Get
Yeah, eat it.
Smoking guillotines, banana shapes of the
what the?
You don't know how to use this remote. Republicans won't pass laws to teach you.
Okay, I think we got it, Chris. We got it. This is hilarious. I mean, this is the best way. I think Senator Kennedy is right. The best way to get rid of these insane progressive lunatics is just to give AOC a microphone, let her talk, let Al Green wave his cane, and disrupt Congress during President's speech, have to be escorted out by the marshals. Let the women who are Democrat lefty lunatics sit there with their pink pussy outfits without their pussy hats. I'll really miss seeing the pussy hats, and the media out there focusing on all these protests, how horrible it is. We got so much discrimination. Yeah, thank you. Well, the discrimination and racism started with Obama, who rubbed raw the tensions of race. If you remember all the incidents Obama championed of these oppressed black people being shot by police, even though they were criminals, though they were running away, even though they were high on drugs or other things. And of course, the mainstream media doesn't report that. Then we have the mobs destroying cities, Black Lives Matter, which are a Maoist group funded through Act Blue. By the way, Pam Blondie, investigate Act Blue. That should be next one of your task forces. We'd have 10 task forces going, and each of them with their own separate grand juries, each with their own separate set of subpoenas. Let's go get these criminals, and let's not let it drift, because we have the algorithms in the state boards of election and election time on midterms in 2026, and it's going to be here fast. The Democrats will steal the Congress in 2026, and we will have a Congress full of Democrats trying to impeach Trump. I think Al Green's already got his 743rd impeachment memo being written right now. Well, he can put that where the sun doesn't shine. And as far as I'm concerned, Al Green needs to be voted out of office. Andrew Paquette says that these algorithms have been in Congress, in the state boards of elections since 2004 and 2007. He also says half of all the Democrats that have been elected since then have been elected by algorithms. I don't think that's far-fetched. I think that's true. It doesn't seem to me the Democrats are nearly as popular as how many votes they have in Congress. And then when you watch what happened in Wisconsin, where the Susan Crawford, this lunatic, who is a woke lunatic, she's supported by a drag queen transvestite who is holding transvestite bingo parties for her to raise money. And the Democrats poured millions into it because they have Act Blue, which is a very good scam. U.S. Aid does a grant to study transgender mice, and that money then gets funneled to the Democratic Party through Act Blue and goes to congressional races or Supreme Court races in Wisconsin. This woman says she's going to make sure there's no voter ID approved by the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Now the wacko leftists, Communist Party, Democratic Party traitors have another seat in the Wisconsin Supreme Court, giving it a majority, increasing their influence on that majority for lunatic leftists in the Supreme Court in Wisconsin. So the voter ID amendment in Wisconsin on April 1st in the ballot passes by 500,000 votes. And Susan Crawford wins her election by 250,000 votes. Come on. People didn't split their ticket. Oh, I'm going to vote for voter ID, and then I'm going to vote for Crazy Susan. No, algorithms handle the whole thing. Democrats did not use the algorithm in the 2024 presidential election because we would have caught them, but they used them on the down ballot elections. On the congressional elections, I think at least, I'd say 20 House seats are held by algorithms for the Democrats and 5 Senate seats. Gods5stones.com. Watch the videos, pass the word on it. We're going to be making sure that we get criminal investigations of the State Board of Elections, the criminals who are manipulating our elections. The criminals equal Democrat communist traitors. We don't need a Democratic communist traitor party. It needs to go away. It needs to blow away with the wind. Okay, dust in the wind to the Democrats. Let's move on to a couple more stories. Let's talk about this woke Space Force head in Greenland. And she was blabbing her mouth after Vice President Vance was there saying that, well, we really like Denmark, and he's talking about the U.S. taking over Greenland, and of course we don't approve of that. She's military. Donald Trump is the commander-in-chief. That was insubordinate. So guess what happened to her? She's fired. Out of there. Get rid of another wacko Democrat in the military. Get rid of another transgender general or admiral wearing dresses, and a male admiral wearing dresses and lipstick. We don't need them in the military. They can go do the transgender bingo if they want to. They can have in their fantasy that some man is going to be attracted to them, or woman, or horse, or donkey, or whatever they think they want to have sex with. And they want to normalize that for all the rest of us. Well, we're done with it. Next will be pedophilia. Next it'll be necrophilia, sex with the dead, sex with Satan. The Democrats don't want to procreate. They want to kill babies. They want to make sure your children in schools are sexually mutilated before the age of puberty. That way they'll never procreate or have an orgasm. Precisely what the Democrats want. And by the way, they'll push euthanasia. Why don't you just do them all a favor and kill yourself? Save everybody a lot of trouble. Democrats are a party of death. They're a death cult. They're satanic. And they are evil. They can't stand up and applaud in Congress for a kid who is beaten of near fatal disease, and all he wants to do is be a law enforcement officer. They can't stand up and applaud that. They have to sit there in their hate. So just show them sitting there in their hate and see how many Americans want to join them. And by the way, defunding the universities, take the money away from the Democrat communist traitors. Take their money away. Go after Soros. Where did Soros get all his money? How about a criminal investigation of Soros? How about a criminal investigation of the State Department going after the Maidan rebellion in Ukraine and causing a destabilization of Ukraine, which is lasting today with a color revolution? Okay, so Donald Trump is on the scene now and he's doing tariffs. And of course, the left is going crazy. Oh, you better go out and buy toilet paper because Donald Trump is going to increase prices. Jeffries was saying yesterday that inflation is increasing under Trump. It actually reduced. Of course, the Democrats don't care about telling the truth or lying. And I was actually glad to see Alex Jones getting some coverage by Tucker Carlson on how Alex Jones, before 9/11 happened, was saying that the FBI and the Department of Justice and the CIA were going to work with bin Laden, who was a CIA agent, to fly airplanes into the World Trade Center. He said that before it happened. And again, we're finding out already. We're getting released the papers on Hitler surviving World War II and getting to Argentina. We're getting out the FBI papers. I wrote a book called Hunting Hitler. I wrote that 10 years ago or so. That's the HBO picked up the title. You can always take a title. Titles can't be copywritten. And HBO ran a series on Hunting Hitler. Chris can show you my book, Hunting Hitler. I was onto this theme a decade ago. And we're finding out all these lies that have been told. Today, we got the first releases of the internal papers on Operation Crossfire Hurricane. I think we're going to see declassification of a lot of papers, which are going to get a lot of people under criminal investigation. John Brennan, Clapper, how about all the intelligence agents that signed that stupid decree saying that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian propaganda? Those people need to go to jail. That's election interference. Okay, so the Dow was down yesterday again, and it looks like it may start down again today. It was down. Let's see, how much was it down yesterday? It was down. Dow Jones was down 1,000 points yesterday, and it will probably go down again today. The futures don't look very strong today, and again, I think we're going to see that Donald Trump is masterfully handling this. So when there's my book, Hunting Hitler. Chris just showed it. So when the Dow is now going down and down and down, they'll have an occasional bounce back, but it is headed downward. Okay, gold today is trading at $3,228.69, and silver's at $31.42. Now, if you listen to me back when I said gold was at 1,800, it'll be now pretty soon at 3,600. You would have doubled your money in gold. Okay, and I told you then to get your IRAs out of the stock market. You've got them in mutual funds. And mutual funds, State Street. Well, you could now switch into a bond fund. You don't have to be in a stock fund. Do you think any of these mutual funds give a damn about you? You're wrong. They don't give a damn about you. They want the assets under management. They don't care if you lose money in the stock market. They can't stop that. Okay, they'll just switch you into another fund. Okay, well, it's a game. It's a shell game. What you should do is get a self-directed IRA and put at least a portion of your IRAs and your 401ks into gold and silver. If you listened to me, you wouldn't be taking the losses you're taking. Now, I'm going to warn you, the stock market today, the Dow Jones today, is going to open at 39,593, just under 40,000. Okay, that's going to be trading at 35,000 pretty soon. It was at 45,000. It lost 10,000 points and will be heading further south. Okay, now people are saying, the sky's going to fall. Donald Trump's going to cause an international recession with his tariffs. Donald Trump is masterful. He said we're going to have all these tariff increases, and the stock market has lost massively since then. Trillions of dollars of capitalization have gone out of the stock market. But Donald Trump then said, okay, we're going to ease up now because we've got 150 countries that want to negotiate with us their tariffs to reduce their tariffs. He said, we'll negotiate, except for China. And China went to, I think, 125% tariffs. Well, China's committing suicide. China cannot survive economically unless we ship them all of our manufacturing jobs so they can use slave labor. I've been on this theme for decades. When I opposed NAFTA, the North America Free Trade, I opposed the Security and Prosperity Partnership in North America. George W. Bush with the Three Amigos. Remember, we're going to unite Mexico, Canada, and the United States. We're going to have the Amero as our currency. Okay, so if you just follow Swiss America, and Chris put up a copy of that book. I want people to see this book. This is a book you can get free from Swiss America. It's how the coming global crash will create a historic gold rush. I wrote it 2 years ago. It's happening now. And if you don't believe me, it's your fault now. It's on you. If you don't call Swiss America at 1-800-519-6268 and start talking about it, don't complain to me. 1-800-519-6268. I'm telling you that we're in a bubble and it's going to burst. It's going to be painful for a while. I think if we do it the right way, and Trump, I think, is about as masterful as anybody, we'll begin to get reinvestment in the United States. We'll begin to get the dollar not having, $34 trillion in debt going to 44 trillion, which it would Biden would have done, because all that trillions that are fabricated get taken by Congress and voted into programs of the agencies, where the agencies give out grants. The grants are given to NGOs that are favorable to Soros. He creates them. The money ends up in the Democratic Party or supporting corrupt Soros judges or corrupt Soros prosecutors, or it goes to consultants who then give the money to Act Blue. It gets funneled through this money laundering scheme into the pockets of far leftist organizations aiming to destroy America. Elon Musk is onto that scheme. Pam Blondie needs to get on that scheme. Where's our task force Act Blue? Investigating the money laundering schemes of the Democrat, stealing government money from the Treasury, pumping our deficit up to $34 trillion. Okay, and on Swiss America, you can also today, if you start dealing with them, they'll create for you a self-directed IRA. How that works is you can then direct where your assets are. You can buy gold and silver under it. Gold and silver will be held in a depository in Delaware under your custody, in your account. You can't take receipt of it, but you'll have a Lloyd's of London guarantee that that gold and silver is there and what its value is. Now, if you want to protect your money, you don't have to be a billionaire to do this. You could also then, if you become a customer of Swiss America, get the advantage of this Walking Liberty $50 offer. You get up to 250 of these coins, which are about 99.99% silver. If you want to do that, you'll own some silver while you're also owning some gold in your retirement account. As the stock market goes to 3,500, you're going to care less because your gold is going to be going to 4,000. This is a very simple calculation. And if you don't do it again, it's your fault, not mine. And also take a look at My Vital C, one of our other sponsors. This is carbon 60 in olive oil, in coconut oil, avocado oil. There's even products. There's skin products, hair products, products for cats and dogs. My Vital C is a remarkable molecule discovered about 40 years ago. The owners of My Vital C were researchers who at that time, when the Rice University in Houston was where the discovery of carbon 60 was made. And these guys were the guys who manufactured carbon 60 here on Earth. It was really, they were looking for interstellar particles, because carbon 60 is much more common in outer space than it is on Earth. But they figured out how to make it soluble. I've been taking it for 4 years, maybe 5 now. And it has remarkable products in vitality. It's helping sleep, mental acuity. Hair products are wonderful. I'm 78 years old. I solidly recommend you get some My Vital C, and do it through our website. So we get credit. You get some codes. You can deal directly with them, and I think you'll find My Vital C to be something you'll need for your health. We're going to be doing much more on this in the future. Okay, now I want to do a couple more stories that are important. Covered Greenland. Trump is rearranging things geopolitically. Trump is a genius. I mean, I've known Trump, I think now for 45 years, and he's just had a remarkable career. I was a VIP guest in Plaza when he owned it and had opportunities to see him, interact with him. He's a gentleman. The idea that he's a racist, Trump worked with the whole staff. He would talk to the staff. He would make sure they were okay. Same as he did in his construction sites in New York. Talk to the unions, talk to the minorities, put a hard hat on and spend part of the day at the construction site just talking to the workers, making sure everything was okay. Did they need anything? Were they safe? How were their families? Trump is a caring person. All the media, the way they've described him, is completely BS, more BS. We've got so much BS around here, it's hard to find the pony. Okay, but Donald Trump is the real deal. And okay, so he's saying we need Greenland. Why do we need Greenland? Because not only are Russia and China weaponizing space, they're also weaponizing the Arctic. And so the Arctic has minerals in it. And by the way, Trump is a genius to say, we can trade if we just get these mineral contracts in countries like Libya, which, by the way, has a legitimate offer on the table to take Palestinians. I personally was involved in getting that together with Philip Escaravage. Philip had married into the Malcolm X family. He had married Malcolm Forbes, not Malcolm X. But I've got the racism on my mind from the Babylon Bee, which was hilarious, by the way. Okay, so the Malcolm Forbes family, he married into the granddaughter of Malcolm Forbes, who is the billionaire of the Forbes magazine, etc. And Philip has spent a lot of time in Libya, and he has the Libyans willing to not only take in the Palestinians, but he has them willing to unify the government. All he needs is an appointment as a special envoy. And we're working to get Philip positioned there because we can get all the countries in Northern Africa. This deal of Trump saying, well, he'll securitize the futures of the oil and natural gas resources in Libya. That'll make Libya a lot of money because those future contracts are tradable. Morgan Stanley creates future contracts on natural resources all day long, and everybody gets rich. Even the Congo wants to play in this game. Now, of course, you can't do it in Ukraine because Zelensky, the criminal, the comic criminal, the Joker, who played on television president before he became, they groomed the Ukrainian people to think of Zelensky as their future president while they were getting rid of Yanukovych in the Maidan rebellion. Thank you, Soros. Thank you, Victoria Nuland in the State Department. Thank all you criminals for doing that. So Zelensky sold the mineral rights in Ukraine to Pinochet. Well, Pinochet was the original oligarch who conned Hillary Clinton into taking money for the Clinton Foundation in 2013 while she was Secretary of State and had a private email server. By the way, where's the Clinton Foundation task force, Pam Blondie? I've got the files down here. You could probably put 250 people in prison just for the files I have and others have on how the Clinton Foundation was a racket. I wrote a book on it called Partners in Crime. Okay, so Zelensky's given all these rights out to Kolomoisky, a banker who ran private bank. And of course, Biden got the U.S. Congress to do billions of dollars of aid to Ukraine, which went into private bank of Kolomoisky, and he money laundered it through Cyprus and other money laundering countries. So the money was all gone. So Biden stole U.S. aid the Congress was giving to Burisma, the natural gas company on which Hunter Biden was on the board, because they wanted Burisma to compete with Gazprom, Russia's gas company in Europe. Of course, it was all a scam. Gazprom was only interested in being money laundering. Now, if all Trump has got to do to stop the war in Ukraine is stop funding Zelensky, stop giving him military equipment. By the way, I think he's going to start increasingly talking about taking 10,000 troops out of Europe. We don't need them. Europe can defend itself. Putin is happy to make agreements. Putin does not want to expand into Western Europe. He doesn't want all the Muslims over there. He's already settled his problems in Chechnya. Doesn't need more Muslims. So Zelensky with no money is going to have to face Pinochet and Kolomoisky, who gave him money for those futures, and he can't deliver. Well, I would not want to be in that position with mafia oligarchs that rule Ukraine. But Zelensky seems to like it. And maybe that's why he's acting up at the White House. He's saving his neck from having taken money in the money laundering schemes from the oligarchs in Ukraine who saw the Ukraine war as a chance to steal more U.S. funded money as we increase our deficit to $34 trillion. Thank you, Joe Biden. If we stop funding the war, it ends. We stop funding NATO, it ends. Stop funding the World Health Organization. They can run all the things they want to run, but the World Health Organization will collapse. We start defunding NATO, NATO will collapse. We start defunding the UN will collapse. So understand this. cut off the money of the Democrat, socialist, globalist traders, and they blow away like dust in the wind. Without their money stolen from the U.S. government, they're nothing. So we got to end this piggy bank. Okay, now how do we handle the deficit? We handle the deficit by creating a new cryptocurrency in XRP. It's a government cryptocurrency. XRP is a trading system, not specifically a cryptocurrency coin, but there is the Ripple is that the XRP can be bought as if it were a coin, and you then are able to take XRP, which I own. I saw this coming, I guess, about 5 years ago, and since the government dollar is fiat, well, XRP is fiat, but I trust more the private company to limit the supply of XRP to increase its value. So if you said to 20-year-olds, you can have your Social Security accrue in US dollars, which are going to be worthless in the future, or you can have them accrue in XRP. I think a lot of people take XRP. XRP today is trading at about $2 $2 a unit. Well, that could be 2,000 or 20,000. So at 20 years old, I think I'd take my Social Security in XRP. In fact, we might even pay off the foreign debt in XRP. Other countries might like to have an appreciating dollar rather than a dollar that's worth less and less every day because it's fiat. And politicians, you give politicians fiat money, all they're going to do is spend it. In fact, Mike Johnson got the budget deal through despite Rhino GOP, who wanted to preserve the Biden green energy carbon credits, which are just a scam. But since they were benefiting from those carbon credits to their constituents and getting paid handsomely for it, the Rhino Republicans were going to block Trump's budget bill. Now it looks like Mike Johnson got it through, but again, it doesn't have quite the tax savings and budget savings that Elon Musk and President Trump wanted. But at least we got something done. The point is, the money is the root of all evil here, and the dollar is worthless. So the solution to a lot of these problems is what we're going through, which is get manufacturing back in the United States, get reinvestment back in the United States, build real growth, not this growth stimulated by just printing money we don't have. And by the way, why do we need the Federal Reserve? The Treasury is able to provide all the money we need without paying interest on it. In the end, God always wins. God is going to win here too. And this is Dr. Jerome Corsi. We're doing podcasts every weekday on CorsiNation.com. Join us again on Monday. Have a great weekend. God bless.